Hey everyone, welcome to the Child Anxiety FAQ podcast. FAQ stands for Frequently Asked Questions, and I'm answering my listeners' questions about child and teen anxiety. My name is Dawn Friedman, and I have been working with kids and families for more than 3 decades as a preschool teacher, parent educator, family case manager, clinical counselor, and now is the owner and operator of Child Anxiety Support, where I help parents of anxious kids. And this episode's question is, what are your thoughts about reward charts for anxious children? I'm going to tell you what my thoughts are about reward charts for kids in general, and it gets complicated. I'll tell you right from the start, I'm not really into rewards as in bribes, as in you do this thing and you will get this. And the reason for that is that then the child is working for the reward and not actually tuned into the process. Now, that's not a blanket statement. I think that it would be a mistake to say never use rewards. I'm not that invested in telling parents never use rewards. I have known lots of families that they do potty training with rewards. They use M&Ms every time their child goes in the potty, they get an M&M or something, and that's fine. I'm not super anti-reward because I think those details they're not as important as the whole entire relationship. When it comes to anxiety, I'm not really about reward charts. I'm not really about you get 5 stars, and when you get 5 stars, you can trade them in for something. And that's just my thinking about that. Part of it, again, is because I want kids tuned into the process and not the reward at the end. And then the other reason is because it can backfire. When kids are all about the reward, sometimes then they won't do things when there's no reward. I remember a million years ago, one of my parenting friends had a child who didn't like to try new foods. And so they made a deal with this child that every time she would try a new food, she would get a small toy. I can't remember I think it was some doll. There was some kind of doll, little figures, maybe little Stacy's or something from Barbie. But anyway, anytime she tried a new food, she would get this toy. And it worked great until she wouldn't eat dinner if there was no new food because she wanted the doll. It wasn't about the new food for her. It was about the doll. And so if they served spaghetti again, she'd be like, hey, I've done spaghetti. I'm not going to get a doll out of spaghetti. So she'd refuse to eat unless they dug into the back of the refrigerator and found something she hadn't eaten before. And that's exactly the problem with rewards. Now, if you really want to dive into it, Alfie Kohn has a book called Punished by Rewards. You can read that, but he is much more anti-reward than I am. It's like I said, I'm pretty flexible, whatever. But I do like charts. I do like celebrations. That means that, yeah, sometimes I say, let's chart what's happening. And when the child accomplishes the goal, let's celebrate. And that can look like a reward, right? It can look like a bribe. But it's not just semantics here. I'm not just playing with semantics. There is a difference between charting what's happening and tracking stars. There is a difference between celebrating an accomplishment versus a bribe. And that's in how the family is doing the thing. Now, you can't control whether or not your child feels like you're charting their successes and you're honoring the completion of a goal with a party. We can't control whether or not they think of that as a reward or a bribe, but we can control how we present it. So let's talk about this. These kinds of charts come up a lot when we're trying to get kids to go to sleep on their own, where we're saying, we would like you to go to sleep without help from us, your parents. And if you can stay in bed by yourself X number of times, let's say 2 weeks, then the family will go out for pizza. That's a pretty normal thing to do. But what makes it not a reward chart if we are keeping track of things? The difference is We are diving into process when we're tracking things. That is to say, we have agreed on a goal that we want to accomplish, whether it's the child staying in bed alone or staying in the bed for 15 minutes or whatever, but we're tracking it. And instead of saying to your child, you failed, you don't get a star, we're tracking how it went. We're noticing what worked and didn't work. So we're charting it, and we're charting each night, did we meet our goal? And if so, why not? And we're taking responsibility for our behavior. If our child was unable to stay in bed, do we need to adjust the way we're doing things? Do we need to have a different plan? We're sticking with the general idea, I'm not going to lay down with you, but maybe we realize we need to make a smaller goal. So it's not the whole night, maybe it's 15 minutes. It's not 15 minutes, maybe it's 10 minutes. It's not 10 minutes, maybe it's 5 minutes, whatever. We're dialing it down together, examining how it's going and what the process looks like. When we make a check mark that says good job or a star, we're doing it hopefully with some measure of neutrality, which is one reason, like maybe not a star, especially if your child has been burned by star charts before. Maybe it's just a check mark. Maybe we have them use a highlighter and use a color code, something that involves them in the discussion. The celebration isn't a bribe either, because the celebration involves the whole family. We're not buying that child a toy. We're celebrating and honoring the hard work of the whole family. We did this thing. This is part of that shift of, instead of focusing on the child's behavior, we're focusing on how we're responding to the behavior. And that's why the whole family deserves some honor and some celebration. Now, we do specifically celebrate the child by acknowledging their hard work. And we do that by sharing with other people what an accomplishment it was. But again, we celebrate as a family. And that helps the child feel not alone in this. It also, again, focuses on our behavior. If we're telling our child, I am not going to lay down with you at night, then maybe the celebration is we didn't lay down with them. Good for us, because we're also trying to learn how to support our child to face their anxiety. And in fact, that is how we introduce the topic. We don't say, the problem is you need me to lay down with you. We say, we've realized that laying down with you is not helping you learn to sleep by yourself. That's on us. I thought laying down was helping, and it's not helping. So I'm going to take responsibility for my behavior, and I am not going to lay down with you. I know you can do this on your own. And again, maybe it's, I'm not going to lay down with you for the first 15 minutes, and I know you're going to be able to handle it. Let's make a plan for what you'd like to do in that time when I'm not laying down with you. Or let's make a plan for what this will look like. Would you like to have your teddy bear or have the dog in there with you or something else? We're making this whole plan, but it starts with, I am no longer going to get trapped in this parenting pitfall. That was my fault. I trapped myself. I am not going to be trapped anymore. I know I've been holding you back. And how can I help you deal with my decision to no longer stay stuck in this pitfall? The celebration's for the whole family. You didn't lay down with them, and they tolerated it. Hooray! In the plan too, we're thinking about, what does success look like? What earns a check mark or a yellow highlighter or a pink highlighter? What gets that star if we're using stars? And again, we're going to focus on our behavior too. I did not go in there, or I was able to not get upset with you. I stayed calm. You stayed in your room. We nailed this. We're impressive. Look at our family doing this thing, growing together. And so, of course, we're all going to have the pizza party. Do you see the difference? It's a difference in attitude. If there are other family members involved, siblings, etc., they need to be part of the discussion too. Siblings get stuck in the pitfalls as much as parents do. We're often asking siblings to make allowances for the anxious child to change their behavior. And that's not fair either. And so they deserve part of that celebration too. Sometimes when I'm talking to families and we're talking about tracking our progress, they say, I've tried reward charts, they don't work. This is not a reward chart. This is not us on high handing down approval to our child. This is a family making a plan, a family creating a goal, and celebrating their progress together. And if you would like help with that, reach out to me and let me know. We will dial down on what's going on. We'll come up with a plan. We'll adjust it as we go. We'll be checking in with each other regularly, and we'll be celebrating your child's and your success.